WNST, family week at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Not many have gone and braved the elements and the conditions, but our Luke Jones, our intrepid reporter and coverer of all things Baltimore Orioles, has been at Camden Yards this week. He'll be there for the conclusion of a 3-game set against the Blue Jays before they take off for 4 games at Fenway, 3 in Detroit next week, and back home against the Tribe next weekend. Certainly Tuesday night, as frustrating an endeavor as we can imagine here in recent times, Luke. That was really a frustrating loss on Tuesday night.
Yeah, that was a bad loss. I mean, you can point and go back to the Minnesota series. They didn't swing the bats well, really weren't in either of those final 2 games of that series. You go to Houston. Look, I'm not going to make excuses, but it's the defending World Series champions you're playing. They had opportunities, but certainly not a shocking result. And you come home, you're feeling good about a 3 out of 4 series win in New York, what was a crazy series in the Bronx, and you get 2 really, really good pitching performances from Dylan Bundy on Monday night, and then Cashner's even better, statistically speaking, 7 shutout innings on Tuesday, and you're being no-hit into the 8th inning for the second time in 5 games at Camden Yards this year. I mean, there isn't any magical fix to this. This team's got to start swinging the bats. I mean, save a couple games here and there. They haven't swung the bats well at all, and especially at home in 5 games at Camden Yards, they have 7 runs. I mean, unless your pitching is unbelievable, which I don't think anyone can expect the Orioles to pitch at.
Well, it was unbelievable Tuesday night. I mean, Cashner was unbelievable for a little while.
Right,
yeah.
But day in and day out, this team's going to have to score runs. Do they need to score 8 or 9 runs every night? You hope not. They had a couple stretches last year where it felt that way. But to this point in the season, 12 games in, and again, we'll remind everyone, 150 games to go, the pitching has been okay. It hasn't been great, but it hasn't been a disaster like it was for long stretches of last season. They're barely scoring over 3 runs a game. I mean, it has really been a struggle for them. And look, I know they've faced some good pitching. There's no question about that, but it's the major leagues. You gotta score runs, and when you're struggling to score even 2 or 3 runs a game, and they haven't even done that much the last couple of nights, it's certainly frustrating because they had a good chance to win both of these games, and instead they take 2 losses.
All right, well, let's go through step by step. I mean, we beat Chris Davis up pretty good, on Tuesday after Monday's endeavor, but they're not going to change the lineup, right? I mean, the guys who need to hit are in the lineup, and Buck's going to keep sending them out to post because that's where it is. So I said this on Tuesday. There's no cavalry coming here. They are what they are. They have to win with what they get by with. They can throw the Nestor Cortezes or the Aruos off the side of the boat, or looks like Santander's going to be the guy who's going to stay, right? And I know he had the fatal flaw on Tuesday night as well. But this is all part of. You're playing with a bunch of minor leaguers here, man. I mean, every night there's a minor leaguer in a key situation who wouldn't be in the major leagues if you didn't have to have him in the major leagues, right?
You know what? I think that's a little overblown. I mean, you look at this lineup, who's hitting well right now? Machado? Okay. Pedro Alvarez has been he's given them a really nice lift, and it's interesting that Mark Trumbo's has started a rehab assignment, and what are you going to do there? I mean, I suppose you could put Trumbo in right field, but then your defense is even worse. So one of the few guys that's been contributing offensively, you're kind of wondering where his place is going to be here sooner rather than later. But beyond that, Mancini's hit into some tough luck. I think he's done a nice job in the leadoff role, but it's not as though he's tearing the cover off the ball. Jones has been okay. Certainly he's had some big moments, but hasn't put up eye-popping numbers overall, but go through the list. I mean, Caleb Joseph, 115. Chris Davis, 081. Jonathan Scope had a huge series in Houston. Beyond that, you know what Jonathan Scope is against other opponents? 3 for 40. He's been as bad as Chris Davis if you remove the Houston series, which I know that counts. I'm not taking that away, but you're talking about one of the 2 or 3 best players on your team that has done nothing other than that Houston series. Beckham, 204. Santander, and, to your point about minor league guys, a Rule 5 pick. He's had some nice moments, but he's hitting 194. I mean, just go down the list. You have about 2 guys that are performing at a high level, 2 guys that have been okay, and everyone else has been terrible. So I think some of the arguments about Santander or Pedro Araujo or Nestor Cortez or Manny playing shortstop and Beckham being at third, I mean, I think those are really inconsequential arguments compared to they have a bunch of guys that they're guys that are making good money, guys that have been around for a number of years.
Guys they're counting on.
Yeah,
that would be, you're counting on them, literally.
That aren't doing the job. So, and I hear what you're saying. I mean, believe me, this roster definitely has flaws on paper, even before you get into the first 12 games where they're not hitting. But, I mean, Chris Davis has a 389 OPS, not an on-base percentage, not a slugging percentage, a 389 OPS. Jonathan Scope, 534. I mean, these are guys that are playing at below replacement level, that kind of area right now. So I don't think that's going to continue. I think Chris Davis is going to hit better than he is right now. That's not exactly a bold statement. I think Scope will straighten himself out. I think Caleb Joseph will hit better than 115. But that said, I mean, you don't want to bury yourself, and they're 4-8, which is hardly insurmountable. But you look at
it's getting there, though. I mean, they got to go to Boston this weekend, and by the way, Boston.
They've got a long way to go before we're talking about them being buried. But at the same time, Boston's 9-1, and Boston's they've been the benefactor of playing Tampa Bay a whole lot to start the year. So I don't know how real the Red Sox are, other than the fact that I picked them to win the division, so I wasn't buying into the Yankees winning 100 games and the Red Sox, just laying over and dead like a lot of people seem to be implying. But they are 6 games out, and they're 7 out in the loss column, and there's 150 games to go. But at some point, you need to start playing better, or you are going to be in that territory where you're 11 or 12 games out in May, and you're exclusively looking at the wild card at that point. We know how much of a fool's gold proposition that can be.
All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at the Baltimore Brigade. I am wearing the Brigade hat. They open the season against the Washington Valor this week. You can learn more about that at BaltimoreBrigade.com. You're going to be hearing from some of the coaches, Jeff Bowler, and some other folks involved with the executive work of the Brigade. Let you know they're playing down at the Royal Farms Arena. It is their 2nd season in arena football. And, of course, you can download the Monumental Sports app as well to watch the games and get involved. Also brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms and the Royal Farms Arena as well on Friday night for indoor football action. Real fresh, real fast. The tasty coffee that is in my Cole Roofing mug right now. The Kona Blend, the best fried chicken anywhere. Use the app when you gas up. Listen to Justin Tucker when he tells you, and you can get those points. Get your Western fries and your fried chicken for free. It is Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Also brought to you by the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel. They're racing this week. The Tessio next weekend. We had Stan Salter on. You can hear that up in the buyatoyota.com audio vault as well. The Laurel entries now on the front of our website at WNST.net, as well as in our morning newspaper, powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. That comes at 7 a.m. each and every morning. As do the words and wisdom of Luke Jones, who was at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Tuesday. The Ravens with the Michael Campanaro loss. Anything you want to say on that before we get back to baseball? I mean, not much going on with the Ravens here. And Campanaro, a guy that had a lot of trouble staying healthy, a guy that I think we all liked and that the organization liked a lot, a local kid, but now signs with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I mean, look, Campanero's coming off of a nice season. He was able to play 13 games, and remember, he was a healthy scratch in one of those 3 games that he did not play. Did an okay job as a punt returner. I mean, actually did a nice job as their punt returner. But I don't think this was unexpected. I know Ozzie Newsome had talked a couple weeks ago and left the door open, but from what I understand, Campanaro was looking for maybe a fresh start, looking for an opportunity elsewhere. I think.
Why couldn't he have taken the plays of Danny Woodhead? I mean, and maybe that's something to ask a running backs coach or somebody smarter than you and I about football, but it seems to me that the skill set, right, like what he is, what he represents, that would be where he could get paid in the league, right? Like where he could really make it happen, being that scat guy in certain situations, third down situations, whatever. I don't know why he wasn't tried more in that situation, I would say.
Blitz pickup. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, you can't have a 190-pound wide receiver lining up in the backfield on third down because Danny Woodhead was someone that, if the blitz is coming off the edge,
he could hold it.
He could chip. I mean,
Yeah.
And not that he's a big guy, but stockier and wider. A little bit more of a blocking base than what Campanaro would have. I mean, Campanero's the kind of guy that he has to stay on the field. That's the given. I mean, this is a guy that prior to this past season played in 11 games over 3 years. I mean, he wasn't someone that you could count on whatsoever. I mean, how many times did we talk about his potential in the spring and summer, and then he goes away?
It was always a leg issue with him, right?
Right. I mean, all kinds of different issues. He had the back issue his second year. Remember, he had the back injury in Pittsburgh, and probably wasn't a season-ending injury, but it was multiple weeks, and the Ravens didn't have a roster spot to hold for him, basically. So, but he's certainly someone who can contribute. It'll be interesting to see how he's used in Tennessee. I think if he can stay healthy, which is always the big if for him, he has the ability to play in the slot. He has the ability to run an end around or something like that, a jet sweep. He can line up in the backfield, but like I said, as far as that being a consistent role for him, you have to be able to pick up the blitz. And Woodhead, despite his size and despite not working out with the Ravens, quite frankly, that's something that he has been was really adept at doing over the course of his career. So that's the biggest reason there. But it'll be interesting to see how it works out for him. You wish him well. A River Hill kid, local, grew up rooting for the Ravens. So I think bittersweet in that way, but again, not someone that at any point you could really count on and say, yeah, he's definitely going to be a big contributor, but did have a nice 2017 season, and you hope he does well for the Titans, except whenever he might play the Ravens.
All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at King Discount Liquors, Lottery, Beer, Booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get out to Rosedale and give the King a ring out on Pulaski Highway. Tell him I like his new TV commercials, even though I'm not in them. I like Johnny Bev in them, too. They're funny. Box Hill Pizzeria, the best crab cakes in Hartford County, can now be shipped anywhere in the world to you via BoxHillPizzeria.com. You know they're expanding the dining room there. They're under construction right now, but it's going to be newer, bigger, and better than ever up at Box Hill Pizzeria, where they're not going anywhere. Those delicious crab cakes, the pizza, and the Hitos. Make sure you stop by and see them. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. If you're in the market to buy, sell, or just want some information about your home, maybe refinance, Fremont Mortgage is the answer. Fremont.com is the way to find them. You can also find Carl Delmont out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault this week. He visited with us about some soccer, and I'm wearing my soccer shirt, but we are talking baseball with Luke Jones and wrapping things up here for the series and the day off and going to Boston and playing the crazy morning game on Monday and the Patriots Day and the Boston Marathon and all that stuff. Feels like the Orioles draw that one a lot. Cashner, at least representative on Tuesday night. I mean, as long as I start seeing pitching from them, I will feel better about the possibilities of them winning. I am extremely concerned about the bullpen because the bullpen has been an arsonist scene here for the first 2 weeks.
Well, here's the thing. The bullpen was really good in New York, and they pitched a ton of innings in New York. So I know a lot of people have been throwing out the stat, well, the bullpen's been scored on in every game. Well, they pitched 9 innings on Friday night, and they pitched, 11 1/3 on Sunday. So,
only 11 1/3 out of the bullpen. That's
all.
I
mean,
including
I think
parts of the first.
Right. So the bullpen's been really good. It was really good in New York, but other than that, it's been very underwhelming. Now, okay, they've designated Nestor Cortez for assignment. Certainly, his inability to get outs.
Can we just have a moment of silence for him? He's not coming back. There's never going to be another Nestor that's ever going to play for the Orioles or anybody else ever again. So can I just play taps for him? I mean, seriously.
Sure.
I mean, dude.
Hey, he's a nice kid. And look,
I rooted for him for 12 weeks, man. and he didn't last 12 days in the big leagues.
Well, it just came down to it. I mean, when you throw 88, your ability to change speeds and your command were supposedly your strengths, and we didn't see that at the major league level. Maybe he goes back to the Yankees and give him another year or two. He's still relatively young, and maybe he develops into a long man out of the bullpen. But the upside there just wasn't enough to justify keeping him around. I mean, Araujo, we've seen him have hiccups, but he's also pitched really well at times. So
you almost can pronounce that. Almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting close.
I'm getting there.
By the time he's gone, you're going to be saying
Araujo. Right, exactly. It is Araujo.
I wonder how Joe Angel, nobody listens to the games on the radio, but I wonder how he says it, because I'm sure he says it with some Miami flair. It would be great.
Yeah, you know, it rolls right off the tongue for Joe Angel.
Yeah, Joe roll his R's on that.
Yeah, but so it's certainly going to help for them to kind of not have the burden of 2 Rule 5 guys in the bullpen, especially if Araujo can give them some outs, some real outs from time to time, as he's been able to do for the most part. He had the blow up in the Houston game, but aside from that, he's been pretty good. But the problem is, who do you really point to in that bullpen right now that's been shut down? I mean, O'Day had been that until he gives up the home run to Granderson. And again, one thing I will say about the bullpen, and I'm not saying it's been good. Believe me, it's had its issues other than the New York series where they did a heck of a job. But when you're only scoring 1 run or 2 runs, this bullpen has rarely even had opportunities to pitch with a 3 or 4 run lead, which isn't, that's not an unreasonable expectation to have some games where you're winning by 3 or 4 runs. So their margin for error has been so small too. So, but O'Day had the hiccup on Tuesday night. Brock has been shaky at best. Michael Givens has been bad. Castro's been up and down. And Blyer's been the one dependable. I mean, he's not dominant, but he gets the job done. So I think we all knew that this bullpen was going to have a tough time without Zach Britton, but even guys that you're counting on to be lights out for the most part, none of them have been lights out. I mean, if you have Brock, O'Day, and Givens, and then Castro and Blyer are still at the next tier below because they haven't done it for as long, you're hoping that of those top 3, at least 2 of those guys can be lights out at some point. And you're always going to have a guy or 2 that's scuffling a little bit. I mean, that's just the ebbs and flows of a season. But when you don't have any of them that have been lights out, and you're playing all these 1-run games and you're not scoring any runs, boy, you just have no margin for error. So it's really tough. I mean, you think about the Orioles over the last 5 to 6 years when they've been successful. It's not as though their offense has been best in the league, but go back and look at 16, go back and look at 2014. The years where they've been successful, they've been somewhere in the top 6 or 7 in the American League in runs scored. Right now they're far below that. They're near the bottom in runs per game, unsurprisingly. With the way, if you've watched these games and you've seen their lineup struggle, and their bullpen has been very mediocre. In fact, their starter ERA right now is better than their bullpen ERA. So it really does speak to how much they miss Zach Britton and how much they're really counting on some established guys in their lineup to start hitting. Because as you mentioned, as you alluded to, the one positive is the starting rotation. Bundy's been exceptional. Cashner has been really good his last
They've had 2 great starts here at Camden Yards. They've scored 1 run and 1 run. And you're not going to win a whole lot of games scoring 1 run, right?
Yeah,
period.
I mean, those 2 have been really good. Cobb's going to debut on Saturday. I'm still, whether Gausman finally blossoms this year or not, he's still a guy that's very capable of pitching exceptionally well for stretches of time, as he has in the second half the last 2 years. So you have those 4. Now, 5th starter is a completely different story. And how long do you go with Chris Tillman? If it's not Tillman, who then? But the starting rotation, there are some signs to be encouraged there. But the problem is, even if that's better, the starting rotation is not going to suddenly become above average and a major strength of this team. I think at best the starting rotation can be middle of the pack in the American League, but if you're only middle of the pack there and your bullpen's been mediocre and you're not scoring any runs, and we've talked about the defense certainly not being where it was 3 or 4 years ago, you start asking the question, what exactly does this team have going for it right now? And it's kind of hard to pinpoint that right now. Dylan Bundy's been superb. He's been outstanding. Throw out any superlative you want to talk about the start of his season. He has been looked every bit the part of a Cy Young candidate, the way he's pitched, other than not having wins because his team hasn't scored any runs for him. But beyond that, I mean, you just look at this team right now, and you have a couple guys swinging the bat well, a couple others that have been acceptable. Everyone else has been awful. Bullpen has been, save for one series, has not been good. The rotation, we've talked about it, has had its bright spots, but still has major questions on the back end. So what do you feel really, really good about on this team, other than just a couple players specifically? You feel good about Bundy. You feel good about Cashner to this point. You feel good about Manny Machado offensively. Now, you can talk about the defense, even though I still think he's at least above average at shortstop. But it's just, you kind of go down the list, and there are far more question marks and far more concerns at this point than there are things that you feel really encouraged about, other than the fact that you remember there are 150 games to go. And, as much as we've talked about the offense, look around the league. Cleveland, they've arguably been the worst offense in the American League so far, and now they've pitched well, so that they've been able to overcome that. But there's a team that you expect to start swinging the bats better. The Yankees are going to be better than they've been to this point. So you remind yourself that 12 games in, Boston looks like the class of the AL East, and you look at some other teams playing well and other teams struggling, and you just remind yourself that tax day has not even arrived. So you take a deep breath, and put it this way: if guys like Scope and Davis and go down the list, Beckham are going to hit like this, then I'll buy into the fact that the Orioles probably aren't going to win more than maybe 75 games at best. But I think there's reason to believe at least some of those guys are going to come out of this, and you hope it happens sooner than later because, as you mentioned, not going to get any easier going to Fenway Park this weekend with the way the Red Sox have been playing.
Gosman will be a box of chocolates on Wednesday. Thursday, the team's off. Tillman Friday, Cobb Saturday, and interestingly enough, the Orioles see Rodriguez on Friday night, their guy. But Sunday is Bundy and Sale at 1 o'clock, and then Monday at 11 in the morning, Boston Marathon, Cashner and Price. So, Bundy and Cashner are seeing the ones and twos everywhere they go as well. And, I'm sure that would probably continue into Cleveland on the following weekend, as well as the Tribe gets here after that. Then there's a homestand, Cleveland, Tampa, and Detroit to end the month after the week in Boston, and then Detroit next week. Luke Jones can be found, Baltimore Luke, out on Twitter, Luke at WNST.net. We're monitoring all things Ravens as well, losing Michael Campanaro. If you're on the text service, brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard, you always get that stuff first. You want to be on that for the schedule next week, for the draft the week after that, for anything the Orioles are doing down the line. Meanwhile, the Capitals get going with Game 1 on Thursday night. Ed Frankovic will be on the scene for all things Capitals. And the Brigade begin their season on Friday at the Rofo Arena. I've got my Brigade hat on all week. They take on the Washington Valor. You can learn more at BaltimoreBrigade.com, as well as through the Monumental Sports app if you download that. Want to give a shout out to our friends at Pizza John's. My mom's favorite pizza, my wife's favorite pizza. I'm thinking about doing a Caps game over there and watching a Caps game. We're going to be at Michael's Cafe in Timonium on Tuesday for Game 3. I may sit down at Pizza John's on Thursday for Game 4 and have a little bit of that homemade fresh dough pizza. If I take Luke with me, we're going to have the meat sauce on that. But I would go, let's see, sausage, green pepper, mushroom, pepperoni, obviously, but you got to get the black olives on there, too. Sometimes I forget the black olives. They're a little bit of a secret weapon down there at Pizza John's. Get this cheesesteak sub, stop, watch the ball game, get a beer. They got the ice cream cart there as well. It's Pizza John's. If you haven't been in a while, you haven't been at all. If you've been lately, you know how good it is. Back River Neck Road, they've been there 50 years, just like I've been here for 20, but on the planet for 50. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. I am on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.